I
Is that a yes? Sorry.
yeah.
Great, fantastic. As many of you know, we as elected officials get the just benefit of working with an amazing staff, and it's very important to listen to them when they are ready for you. That's when we are ready to go. I just wanted to welcome everyone again. It's great to be back with you. If you're anything like me with the two kids, it's been already about a 3-hour day, so good afternoon, I guess. I wanted to thank Neil and everyone for getting us together again for this month to talk a little bit about the federal landscape. And just wanted to be able to share a bit about, from the administration perspective, how we are looking at our opportunities and challenges and how we are hoping to continue to partner with all of you for um, I would say partnership going forward, but also helping us educate those who are in other branches of government and those who are in our communities to make sure that they understand the true and valuable impact of the work that's being done day to day. As many of you know, the effects of the federal administration's efforts on cutting back in government, quote unquote, have hit the arts sector. And I know as much as you do that we have tremendous advocates in the Attorney General's office and in the administration who are working to ensure that we have the legal recourse if as needed to challenge some of these cuts. But in addition, we're trying to think about how we can continue to support nonprofits and state budgets in these areas so that the essential and creative work can continue. One thing that you've seen in the budget reset, our governor has proposed a kind of safety fund so that we can make sure and backstop wherever possible. That, of course, will never begin to touch the impact of the federal and other funds that flow through our arts programming and other essential services throughout our state. So we're going to be creative in other ways too. I think it's really important at this time to make sure that if you haven't talked to your legislator about the work that's being done, about the impact that's being made, about the opportunity for economic growth here in Delaware by investing back into the arts, it's time to have that conversation. We are entering into budget season in Legislative Hall, and we want to make sure that as as our legislators are pouring over those lines of budget, that they are attributing the real value to the work that you and your colleagues are doing in communities up and down the state. And I want to make sure too that you know that you have obviously, I see Jess Ball on and others who can be resources as well to help you understand what's happening from the state side. And alongside my office and other advocates like Senator Cruz, who I see on today, we will continue to make sure that we do our best to partner with you as well. So thank you so much and welcome.
I'm happy to take it from here, Lieutenant Governor, to guide us through the next portion. And I just wanted to say we're really appreciative that you offer us this platform to get together every few months and help elevate our issues and make sure like we are finding the time to strategize and talk together, and then also have you as a thought partner, someone to help share insights from the administration and really help put the arts sort of on a map at the state level. So thank you for helping us host these. It's really, really appreciated. If everyone hasn't done introductions yet, please continue to do so in the chat. We're fortunate to be joined today by Jessica Ball of the Division of the Arts and Michelle Anstein from Delaware Humanities to do exactly what the Lieutenant Governor said, which is sort of share updates from inside the house, if you will. And then I can talk through from outside what we can do as advocates, just building on what the Lieutenant Governor has suggested, some sort of next steps we can take to talk with legislators and others. And so with that, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jessica to the stage, which I think I saw her join a second ago. And if folks have questions as we go here, please utilize the chat function to do so. Just like a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to share the most up-to-date information that we have regarding attacks, not just on the National Endowment for the Arts, but also the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Institute for Museum and Library Studies. We're going to talk through what the implications are for Delaware and then organize all of us around some potential actions we can take. If you've happened into this call and they're getting back from vacation, maybe like didn't check your inbox for the last week or so, as just a high-level update, on Friday, many active and pending grants from the National Endowment for the Arts, the NEA, were abruptly terminated. And though this was abrupt, it was not a surprise as it followed very similar attacks made on the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Institute for Museum and Library Studies last month. And this came at the very same time that President Trump proposed a FY26 federal budget that would eliminate the NEA, NEH, and IMLS. So our job here at the Arts Alliance, if we haven't met, my name is Neil Kirschling. We're the statewide arts advocacy organization, is to provide all of you with the most up-to-date information and organize us around effective collective calls to action. And so let's sort of dive right in. I'll do a little bit of context and then hand it over to you, Jessica. The last two federal budget years, FY24 and FY25, you can see the amounts on the screen here for the NEA, NEH, and IMLS, and the amount that came specifically to Delaware. In the arts, just under $1 million. In the humanities, just under $1 million. And in museum and library studies, about $1.5 million in the FY24 budget, which is finished and finalized. What you'll be hearing a little bit about today is the FY25 budget. This is a budget that was passed by Congress, signed into law back in March through continuing resolution. It extended FY24 funding and said states should receive the same amount that they had. So this money is effectively promised to states. This is the funding that has been terminated, cut, taken back. Again, money that was already sort of allocated and passed in statute. This chart is not inclusive of every single federal pot of funding that you take advantage of. I know some of you have shared with me, like, we utilize Head Start funds for early education programs, and we use USDA grants for community, redevelopment, but meant to just capture some of the big ones. As you can see on the chart here, the president's recommended budget would zero out all of these agencies. It's my understanding that was also his recommendation during his first term, which never quite came to fruition because this is the start of a very long, complicated federal budget process with lots of opportunities for us to utilize our relationships in Congress to hopefully put funding back into these areas. And then just the last point of sort of process, the federal budget begins in October. For those of you that have participated in state level advocacy, you know our budget year is the beginning of July through the end of June. So our state is passing a budget right now without the final information about what will happen in the federal budget. And I imagine, Lieutenant Governor, that that's part of the difficulty, right, at the state level of thinking through how potential cuts would fare when you have to pass a budget by the end of June.
I don't know how many of you would be interested in this, but I am currently on a...
And that is, sorry, Tracy Frizzle Jacobs is an educator at MOT Charter School who said she's going to call in with her class of seniors because they're interested in advocacy and information. So thanks, Tracy.
That's great. Yeah, and Neil, just real quick, I think that is like the kind of the foundational problem, right? Is uncertainty, and then I would say as well uncertainty in our projections that we can rely on in making allocations here because of what we've seen in the markets. But I was just about to text Senator Cruz and say, screenshot this chart, share it in caucus. Like, this is the type of information, the stark contrast that you can see in the actual numerical impact. So this is really helpful.
Thank you. And I think that's all I wanted to share on this slide. But if Michelle or Jessica or others have comments or questions. I have a note for myself here. Just again, for historical context for all of you, Congress passed the National Foundation on the Arts and Humanities Act in 1965. And when it did, it declared the arts and humanities belong to all the people of the United States. And since its inception, the NEA, NEH, and IMLS have played a critical role in broadening access to cultural, education, and economic benefits of the arts in every single congressional district. Federal arts funding supports thousands of communities across the nation, and that is not a surprise, I'm sure, to anybody on this call, but just for a little background. So with that, Jessica, I think I saw you come through. Are you on the call?
I'm here.
Can you
I'm here,
introduce yourself?
Neil.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome. I'm happy to process the slides for you. And I've tried to put the most up-to-date information that we have on here. So feel free to speak to this or speak off the cuff, Jessica. But if you could share with folks sort of where we've been over the last few weeks on the arts side with federal funding.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I think many of you know that DOGE showed up to the NEA offices on Friday, April 18th. And they returned the following week, and they were there for about a week. It seems that their time at the NEA has concluded, according to Mary Ann Carter, who's the senior advisor for the NEA right now. She believes, she's about 90% sure that DOGE's work at the NEA is done. Many of you know that a lot of organizations, including arts organizations across the country and regional arts organizations across the country, received termination letters of their NEA grants. The cuts that DOGE did at the NEA seem to have come mostly from the 60% side of the NEA. So the NEA is congressionally mandated to grant 40% of its budget to the states, to state arts agencies like DDOA. They seem to have not touched that 40% in their cuts at DOGE. And so it seems as though the cuts that DOGE made are limited to the 60% of the NEA's budget that covers their direct grants, their internal costs, staff, et cetera, and the programs that they run internally. About half of the NEA staff will be leaving at the end of May. So it's going to be a much smaller, much different agency in the future, or at least for the near future. We have not received any termination letters regarding our state partnership grant with the NEA. We are cautiously optimistic that our FY25 partnership agreement will move forward and that those funds will come through from the NEA. We're not, of course, 100% sure, but we are cautiously optimistic. That money accounts for about 14% of our budget. As Neil said, it's just under $1 million. We expect it to be more this year if the funding comes through, because we've applied for some additional funding around arts and health and arts and 250 for the nation's 250th. So we are currently in the process of our grant panels for our state FY26 grants. And as you know, you all get those award notices typically in July after the state passes its budget. So we are moving forward with our schedule as usual, and we are doing multiple financial scenario planning for our grant applications as usual. It's just part of what we do normally. And so I would say that for now, it's business as usual at DDOA. We're very grateful and fortunate that it seems that our partnership agreement will remain intact. But of course, we're also dealing with the budget proposal from the president that eliminates these agencies. And as Neil said, that would create a very difficult situation in the nation. There are a lot of congressional districts in rural areas where the only arts funding that they receive is from these NEA grants. So I think nationally this definitely precipitates an arts and culture crisis. I really appreciate what DAA is doing to advocate for the NEA, for the IMLS, and for the NEH. So anything that you all can do as advocates is greatly appreciated from our end. I think as the Lieutenant Governor is indicating, the state is well aware that the cancellation of these federal dollars would have a huge impact on multiple sectors throughout the state. And so I think the General Assembly is in quite a position this year in looking at the financial impacts of this. So thanks for all the work that you all are doing. That's about it from us. Thanks, Neil.
Yep, you're welcome. For those that maybe have had terminated grants or will experience this, I wanted to share some resources that have come through my networks. There's a number of national organizations that have put together template letters, template appeal letters, like checklists, follow this if your grant's been terminated. And this is not just specific to the arts. I mean, some of the template letter from the Film Alliance is NEA specific, but other of these resources are broad to any type of organization. So if you or anyone else has experienced a grant termination, we'll send these materials out after the meeting, and you're welcome to look at it. And while the state's partnership grant hasn't been canceled, like there are direct grants in Delaware that have been canceled. And Leanna, I know you're on the call from Wilmington Children's Chorus. You're one of a few Delaware organizations that got that email Friday. I'm sure your stomach dropped. So if you could just maybe share with the group, like what that funding would have been used for, what that email was like, just your experience, because I want it to be impressed upon everyone that there are cuts happening in real time here in Delaware.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. It was unfortunately not unexpected to get that grant termination letter, but it was still sort of a shock to the system. We were holding out some hope, perhaps even that we would slip under the radar at NEA. Our grant from the National Endowment for the Arts was to support the Rideout Teaching Fellowship. Dan Rideout was a local choral conductor, composer, and arranger, well known in the region for his work on both interracial choirs and also arrangements of Negro spirituals. Really a force, particularly here in the Wilmington community. And we created a fellowship in his honor a few years ago to provide immersive professional development for music educators of color who are starting out at the beginning of their careers. It's a really unique opportunity for our nation's educators. This professional development opportunity is full-time, full year with a salary and benefits so that these young educators don't have to stress over supporting themselves while they work to improve their craft and become the best teachers possible that they can be before they enter the classroom. We have had one successful year of the fellowship, which was very exciting. I think some of you have worked with Ariel Alvarado, who came to Wilmington, Delaware from Georgia because of this fellowship opportunity. She has been a fantastic addition to the Children's Chorus team. These fellows get a chance to work with all 750 young people that Children's Chorus serves, ages 6 weeks to 18 years old, primarily children of color, primarily coming from low-income communities. So they have an opportunity to experience a wide range of ages, children from different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, all walks of life and experiences. So it is a wonderful opportunity to broaden your experience, broaden your horizon as an educator. And our students loved the fellowship just as much as the fellow loved the fellowship. We did a lot of data collection after our first year, and we found that for most of our students, 51% actually, the teaching fellow was the first music educator of color they've ever had. And we know that students learn better when they're in classrooms with teachers that look like them. So that has real profound impacts on their future love and success in the arts. 85% of students surveyed reported that they'd learned new things, heard new unique perspectives because of the fellowship. 76% identified the teaching fellow as a role model. And one of my favorite stories, one of our young men who was going to graduate and go into trade school to become an electrician, actually decided to change his career path and for the first time saw his potential future as a music educator and has enrolled in school to pursue that path. So very exciting. It's also a wonderful opportunity to bring highly skilled workforce here to Delaware, particularly to diversify our teacher workforce. And Ariel is still in Wilmington, and I asked her this morning for a list of the schools that she's working with. She's working with Christiana High School, Glasgow High School, Gallagher Cobbs Middle School, and maybe Leisure Elementary School, as well as Shortledge Academy and the Boys and Girls Club of Delaware. So we have managed to successfully attract talent here to the region, a diverse music educator who's working with thousands of children up and down the state. And the NEA was set to support the next term of the fellowship, but withdrew that funding late Friday night. So as you imagine, we are scrambling, trying to find ways to make this program viable for the coming year and continue to deliver on these impacts for our kids.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Leanna. Thank you. And thank you for modeling out what it's also like to talk about the work and share that impact story, because these are real dollars that translate into real meaningful experiences for people in Delaware. So thank you. Jessica, if you're still on the call, I threw in some other slides on the division's impact, and I know you're doing grant panels today too, so I can also speak to them if not. Okay, actually, it probably makes sense to go quickly through this so we can get to Michelle, and I think Annie's on the call too. This will be in the slide deck when you send it out. Just a reminder, I know folks have seen this before, but in FY24, the division granted out just under $5 million in a number of different grant line items. Last year was $5.3 million. This funding benefits schools, community organizations, arts organizations, individual artists. Hey there, Jess. To a number of different projects. Anything else, Jessica, you want to share just about the current work of the division? I think the business is underway as usual is the key message here, but I wanted to make sure you had the chance to speak to any other sort of DOA business.
Thanks, Neil. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was having a little technical difficulty with the computer. Yeah, I mean, thanks for putting these slides up. We at the division try to, if the slide before, Neil, we're very proud of that ratio. We do want most of our budget to go out the door in the form of grants to the communities. And we less than 25% of our budget is spent on internal costs, programs, services, et cetera. So we are proud of that ratio. What's the next slide, Neil?
I think you wanted to say that it could
Oh,
all go
yes,
away.
it could, yes. We're fortunate to have the allocation that we do from the General Assembly. The General Assembly and the executive branch historically have been very supportive of the arts in Delaware in a very, bipartisan way. There are other state agencies throughout the nation that are facing total defunding. A part of the deal with the NEA is that states have to match 1-to-1 the federal dollars that are coming into the state. Delaware far outmatches that. We match 6-to-1 here in Delaware, which is phenomenal. But some states, the states really only match 1-to-1. And so if that federal funding goes away, those states will automatically be completely defunded. There are some states where their general assemblies are actively working to shut down the state agencies, much like the president is working to shut down the cultural agencies at the federal level. So the message is, please don't take arts funding for granted. It can go away. And we're fortunate here in Delaware to have lawmakers that understand the value of the arts, but don't miss a chance to advocate for state arts funding. Yeah, we're moving forward as usual. Every grant cycle, we do plan for multiple financial scenarios. So we are doing that. Currently, our guidelines and deadlines remain unchanged. The NEA's deadlines have changed. We don't expect to hear from them about our partnership grant in the near future. They're running about 8 weeks behind their usual schedule. So we also won't know what what the kind of requirements and stipulations around accepting their grant funding will be yet. That remains to be seen. But our guidelines and our statement of assurances has not changed as of yet. We will certainly notify folks if it does. But DDOA as an agency has always operated in compliance with civil rights laws. We've never executed grants that are illegal in any way. So we don't anticipate changing that. You know, our grants are not a political litmus test. Our grant decisions are based on community responsiveness, artistic merit, management capacity. That is not going to change. And we know that everyone's counting on us. So we're here working. We hope that you all will continue your work, and we're here to support you in that.
And then last slide, Jessica. And any final advice that you have for?
Yeah, I think that this is a good one. I think using de-escalating language, we've been working really hard at the division to not report out on things until we know that they are facts and not rumors. I think that it's a difficult situation, but we've all been here before where we don't know exactly what's coming, in the near future. But we have to try to be patient and not lose our minds in all of this chaos. Don't speculate. Don't change your website language. Don't change your grant language when it comes to DDOA grants. We will proactively let you know if any changes need to be made. So don't do that now. We're committed here to diversity, equity, inclusion. We're committed to that work. So it's in our strategic plan. It has been in our strategic plan since 2021, since that plan launched. So it's not really going anywhere. I think that now is the time, as Neil said, to really come together as a unit. Let's try to sing from the same songbook. I think that it's difficult because the NEA staff have been dealing with a lot of uncertainty themselves. And I know that a lot of folks have been frustrated with their lack of communication in some cases the last couple of months. But that is obviously coming from somewhere higher up than NEA leadership, and they don't have a lot of choice. So yeah, I think let's try to be kind to each other and to public servants. And I consider everyone that works in government and the nonprofit sector public servants. So now's a good time to be kind.
Well, let's welcome up thank you, Jessica, our next public servant, Michelle Anstine, Executive Director of Delaware Humanities, to share what's happening on the NEH side of things. For context for folks on the call, National Endowment for the Humanities, again, created 1965, federal funding flowing to the states. For whatever reason, was set up differently, where the humanities funding flows to nonprofit humanities councils. The Delaware Humanities is a nonprofit organization, unlike the Division of the Arts, which is a state agency. There is no state match required for the humanities side of things. So, Michelle, if you could update us, and I think I put an extra L in your name by accident here, on where things stand with the humanities. You experienced cuts outright back in April and have been working legally, financially, grant-wise since then. So.
Thanks, Neil. I have to admit, I went over the slides. I didn't even notice that you put an extra L in my name, but I've always said that, since in my youth, I was offended because I could never find anything, a keychain, a necklace with a Michelle with just one L. But in my adulthood, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, with Michelle Obama as, you know, sort of a ray of light, I've been very proud to be a Michelle with two L's as well. That said, as you pointed out, thanks, Neil, for giving a little bit of an introduction. We don't, the state does not match one-to-one, like you said, but we are required for that federal funding to make a match. So the big difference is the state doesn't provide our match. We have to provide our match. And we do so through both a cash match and also in-kind services. So a large part of our match, unlike the Division of Arts, is through in-kind services because but for our budget, the funding that we receive from the NEH currently is about 85 to 90% of our budget. And we make up the difference with individual donations and state grant and aid and a variety of other sources. So obviously the impact to us of losing the federal funding was pretty severe immediately too, because the other difference that we've talked about before, if any of you attended the policy briefing last month, is that the way that funds are dispersed to the state humanities councils versus the state art agencies are a little bit, it's a little bit different, so that we receive our funding with a notice of action, and we never received, under continuing resolutions, we received a portion of our funding, and then we were supposed to, once the final continuing resolution was passed, receive a notice of action that would give us access to the rest of the funding for the year. We never received that notice of action. And so we only had access to, I think, about $300,000 that we were able to draw down before our access was cut off. So obviously our budget is impacted already, and we are, unfortunately, we had our spring round of Action Innovation grants that we had already worked through, approved, and we were not able to disperse those funds to the organizations that had wonderful projects that were ready to go. So we've been impacted not only as an organization, but also our grantees, because the funding that we receive is federal funding that we just turn around via subawards and regrant to the public. So I will say that that is the line item in our budget that is will be, you know, the first to be impacted. If we don't receive federal funds, we won't be able to continue our grant program, because it is just re-granting federal funds, $250,000 to $300,000 worth of federal funds to organizations all across Delaware. And, you know, sincerely, it breaks our heart, because we also feel very committed to re-granting funds, just like the Division of Arts. But because it is federal funding, if it's not there, we don't have it to give. Like I said, otherwise, we are cutting back in many ways right now, and we are waiting to hear about other funding sources. We do receive grant and aid, and that largely funds our Speakers Bureau, and we do have other grant requests that have already been applied for or are in the works. So we're waiting to hear about some of our core programs and whether we'll be able to reopen them to the organizations around the state that make use of them. Oh, where to start? I'm looking at the slide now, but I can say one of the lights for us, the bright lights, very bright lights, is that the Mellon Foundation definitely understands the power of arts and humanities in the United States and stepped forward fairly quickly after being in conversation with our membership organization, the Federation of State Humanities Councils. They came forward to grant $15 million to the Federation to be dispersed among all of the state and jurisdictional humanities councils, which means that we will receive $200,000 just to be able to use for our operations to keep the doors open. I will say we're a little bit luckier than some state humanities councils in that we have reserves. We would prefer not to tap those reserves. So we're protecting them for as long as we can, but some states we're looking at having to close their humanities councils as early as June. So these funds from the Mellon Foundation are really helping to keep the doors open. And for us, they will help our operations through the end of our fiscal year, which is October, and just sort of to stabilize what we're doing as an organization so that we can keep things moving and hopefully see some changes going forward. I can say that our membership organization, the Federation, is working with a law firm out of Portland, Oregon. We will be filing a lawsuit against the NEH, and hopefully that will happen in the next month. You can see on the slide that the NHA, National Humanities Alliance, the American Council of Learned Societies, and the Modern Language Association have already filed a lawsuit against the NEH. And it's my understanding that the lawsuit against IMLS, this lawsuit that was brought by NHA, these are all stepping stones for us, hopefully to see some change going forward and potentially our funds, at least for this year, restored. So the other thing I would say too is we're very happy that the arts councils at this point are holding on and that they have not been hit the way that the humanities councils are. One of the things that is I guess, tradition in terms of the NEA and NEH is that they always strive for parity when it comes to Congress. And so we are also hopeful that if the arts councils are still there, that means that we might be reinstated as humanities councils going forward. So I would say for us, it is very much a positive to hear that at this point, we still have our arts councils, and I'm very grateful that we can work together with all of the state agencies under the Secretary of State, as well as Neil, to really form an alliance and share information, because that is crucial to what's going on going forward. I will also say that we are through the Federation, where there are Dear Colleague letters that are circulating in the House and now the Senate, for us specifically looking at FY26 funding for the NEH and for state humanities councils. And our executive directors of humanities councils across the country are specifically talking with Republican members of the House and the Senate, trying to get them to sign on to the Dear Colleague letters, because at this point, the Republican members are the ones who are going to make the difference going forward. So we're really trying to activate that support that has long existed, bipartisan support for the work that we and the arts councils do. But we're trying to get people really to speak up. I think that's been a major problem lately. I think those are probably the main highlights that I have right now.
Just a few things, yeah. I put on the slide also just so folks could see it visually, the impact that your grants and programs had last year. I think that this sort of state map is really a powerful one, and I think you already spoke to this, that you'll receive some funding through the Mellon grant. There's also, I read, some match funding too, so folks feel compelled to donate to the Humanities Council. It can help the organization access this additional funding here on the slide. So I wanted to just call that out too.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that too. I think the Mellon Foundation very wisely for humanities councils like ours that have relied, so much on the federal funding are trying to build that base of local funding as well. So yes, up to $50,000. Any donations we receive at this point will be matched by the Mellon Foundation.
Yep. Okay, that's helpful. The last federal agency we wanted to talk through was the Institute for Museum and Library Studies. And I thought I saw Annie Norman on the call for a brief second. I know she's out of the area for a libraries conference today, so we double scheduled. But if she
Yes.
hops back on, well,
Yeah.
did I hear your voice, Annie?
Yes, I'm here. We're
Oh,
here.
you are there. Sorry. Oh, you're under Catherine Wimberly. Well, no wonder I
Yes,
couldn't find you when I
Catherine is
searched.
right here with me. Here, there's
Welcome,
Catherine.
Annie, and welcome, Catherine. I know you all are doing good work at the conference. I put the most updated information on the slide, but would invite you to, give updates to the community and thank you for the advocacy work you've been doing as well.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Neil, for including libraries in this and to partners. So Catherine and I are logged in here, thanks to Catherine for doing this. We're logged in from the Maryland Delaware Library Association Conference in Ocean City, which was at risk. And, it's a really key professional development for library staff. So we're really grateful that was able to continue. And I also think it's an example of partnerships, which, we're grateful to all of you as well, that I think going forward, the more we can collaborate together, the better. So as I agree with a lot that both Jessica and Michelle said, in particular, Jessica talking about the comparing Delaware situation with other states. We are so fortunate in Delaware to have the support that we do from the administration. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. But also, of course, our federal congressional people and the staffers and all of that. And I got to tell you, I have a new appreciation for the Attorney General's office, all the DAGs and Kathy Jennings. Oh my gosh, they have really stepped forward for us. So as you have here, Delaware has been part of a couple lawsuits for libraries, which recently the judge from Rhode Island did put a stay so that we should be getting all of our LSTA funding. So first they had granted us, they said we would get 50%. And then with this stay there, we got an email that they intend to award all of it, but they haven't said when. They didn't seem to know when. But we do expect to get all of this year's funding, which would be great. We're also, the Delaware Attorney General is also part of a lawsuit regarding AmeriCorps. So Senator Coons had met with us recently on a Tuesday, and that Friday night, all the AmeriCorps vistas were terminated. And we did find out that they're being paid for 30 days. We didn't know that originally, but we're also part of a lawsuit around the AmeriCorps. And there are several other organizations in Delaware that are impacted by that as well, including some of our partners, Literacy Delaware, Reading Assist, who have lost AmeriCorps volunteers. So, it's hitting in all different areas. So when we do get the funding, we're going to be very cautious about how we spend it because we don't totally trust it. And so because the state is so supportive, we'll start with the state funding that we have and then use the federal funding to kind of, close gaps where we need to just to make sure we really get it. So I guess that's kind of where we are, unless anyone has questions. Oh, by the way, while we were sitting here on this, the director from the Georgetown Library stopped by, not knowing we were on this, saying, "Oh, the Lieutenant Governor's visiting tomorrow." She was like, "Do we have anything?" I was like, "We want to work with her, all the libraries," and I'm happy to coordinate that with the Lieutenant Governor and hope to have a chance to meet with her. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Annie.
Annie, thank you. I just want you to know, though, I am in a Delaware library at least 3 times a week because I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old who are reading nonstop. So you can literally grab me anytime.
Just
They're
need
just
to
going to be
know the
like a
pattern, where
wanted
you are.
post. Yeah, it's like a wanted poster on all the libraries. Like whenever Lieutenant Governor walks in the door, flag her down. Well, the point of all of us being on this call together too is there are so many grants and programs that all three humanities, arts, libraries are doing together simultaneously, and funding that is working in collaboration to support our communities. And Catherine has helped draft sort of the beginning of a joint op-ed that begins to, elicit that and communicate that to the public. So the other slide I had here for you all, Catherine and Annie, was just an example of some of the ways your funding is benefiting the state, including some of the projects that you all have supported recently to articulate that sort of interconnectedness. And the Library Association has some really great resources that are linked here, showing our federal delegation why they care about the arts, why they care about libraries, what the money is going for. I would encourage people to check those out. And so with that, with our last few minutes together, I wanted to point people towards some calls to action. If you feel so inspired by this, as our speakers have sort of teed up the importance of getting involved, at least federal advocacy, like we've said, our federal delegation is very supportive, have been very supportive, but we know that they can talk to their other members of Congress who have not been so supportive and develop bipartisan solutions together. We have a draft email to Congress that talks about the NEA, NEH, and IMLS all together. As our speakers mentioned, our federal delegation currently have the opportunity to sign on to a Dear Colleague letter, get their name and signature on the record supporting all of these funding sources. And so we've teed this up. It'll be in the material sent afterwards, where all you have to do is sort of personalize it a bit, and it'll go off to our federal delegation. If you're also interested, there's a National Pulse survey that Americans for the Arts has organized. This is a way to get data on your organization and some of the potential impacts of all of this federal nonsense on your organization. And then once you've done that survey, if you can articulate that to us at the Arts Alliance, this last link here is a story bank. It helps us understand what you're dealing with. Many of you have emailed me or shared on these calls, or like, hey, if we don't get state and federal funding, because it all goes in the same pot, a lot of it, and goes to you through the partnership grant. This is what's at stake here. Like, we can't do these programs. This is how the money is being utilized. And so as it relates to federal funding, these are 3 actions that you can take immediately. And again, we'll send this out as links afterwards. We at the Arts Alliance are in touch with our members of Congress, as are others on the call, asking to restore grant funding in support of arts, culture, and creativity through NEA, NEH, and IMLS. Lieutenant Governor opened this call, talked about the importance of state advocacy, and we talked about how our state budget will get passed without knowing where things land with the federal government. Even before the current grants were terminated and next year's federal budget was threatened to be zeroed out, even before that, we identified that there is a need for our state funding to the Division of the Arts to keep up with increased demand. We were already asking for $1 million of our state legislature this year through the Joint Finance Committee and budget making process. Many of you have been engaged with that process already. Of course, the possibility of losing all federal funding makes this even greater of a need if there is no federal funding and also this increased demand at the state level. But there are things that you can do and things that we are doing. So right now, our Arts and Culture Caucus co-chairs, Senator Lockman and Representative Shoup, are circulating a Dear Colleague letter asking other legislators to sign on in support of increasing state funding for the arts. Lieutenant Governor Gay signed this letter last year when she was a member of the General Assembly. It was greatly helpful and impactful in articulating that there is, public and political support for this funding request. That is a active request out there. If you have not emailed your legislator to let them know you want them to be supportive of NEA, NEH, IMLS funding that's gone away to support these activities at the state level, we have a link for you to do so. We would very much appreciate it. Jordan and I were in Legislative Hall on Tuesday. About 12 legislators signed that letter that day, walking around the hall, but they need to hear from folks in their own districts more so than they need to hear from me. And then lastly, there is one final in-person meeting for the Arts and Culture Caucus. We will raise the importance of all of these federal pots of money at that meeting, but it is a chance to be in Dover in person, showing up and sharing the importance of our sector being sustained. Senator Lockman, Representative Shoup will convene this meeting. The guest speaker will be the Secretary of State. Libraries, Historical and Cultural Affairs, and Arts all fall under the Secretary of State's office. It is a great chance for us to show up and at least physically demonstrate like we're in this fight. We are caring about the sustainability of our sector. The chairs are going to ask her a few questions to talk about the importance of the arts, importance of culture, how that relates to the state's economic development. And so would encourage you all to attend. And also while you're there, help us get some final signatures on that last letter. And then lastly, there are other broader advocacy efforts happening. We've been talking about arts and culture today, but certainly there are cuts happening across the state in many different sectors. And our partners at the Nonprofit Alliance are organizing a rally in a few weeks down in Dover. If you'd like to get connected and you feel compelled to show up and do something in person, here's an opportunity to do so. So I think that I've rattled through a lot of calls to action very quickly, but wanted to give at least like in our last few minutes, folks a chance to jump in. I know I didn't leave as much time as I would have expected, but if there are other ways that you are making your voice heard or would like opportunities to make your voice heard, if there are other sort of messages that you feel like we need to be sending as a sector or could be sending more of, would welcome any sort of comments and reactions from the community. It's a conversation starter and also a conversation ender since we're nearing the end of time here.
And Neil, can we also collect some of these stories via email as well? Because I think being able to share real life impacts like we heard from Liana today is really impactful when we're doing our in the hall advocacy work. Yeah.
The link that we have is just sort of like a big form. You can dump your story in there, but if you're not compelled to use this link, you can email it to us and we'll throw it in ourselves. And that's a great suggestion. Oh, and Suzanne's on the call. Thank you, Suzanne. Sorry, I didn't see you until now. Suzanne, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share any updates that you might have from the Historical and Cultural Affairs perspective. Thank you for being here.
Sure. Suzanne Savory, Director, Historical and Cultural Affairs. We've learned last Friday that the Department of Interior has been visited by DOJ and their cuts occurred Friday as well. So that funding is for the National Park Service. So there's been significant cuts to operations of the National Park Service, but they've also eliminated all of their grant funding programs. And the only grant funding category that exists relates to the historically Black colleges and universities. So there's many agencies in Delaware that have applied for Save America's Treasures. And, you know, a lot of our arts organizations and history organizations are in historic structures, and a lot of that funding comes through those sources. So the funding opportunity has not been opened for 2025. So there is no money for 2025, the federal year yet. And it was, as with the arts, eliminated in 2026. So it's the same, it's another source of funding for, as we're all in this together, for arts and culture. So the American Association for State and Local History has a whole campaign going on there as well. So I think we can certainly add some of that to it. So we're all in this together, and it's one voice, and especially in our small communities, the arts and the history, the culture, they're all interconnected. So I think it's great that we're all working together.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that update. And if you email me those links, I'll put them in a slide and make sure that they're in here for when we share this out with everybody so that they can see.
I'll send them shortly. Thank you.
That's helpful. Tanetta, I think I saw you raise your hand. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Tanetta's next, but I just want to make you aware. Jamie from Jester Arts asked a really good question in the chat that I think you can address about organizations kind of engaging their constituents and their beneficiaries.
Yeah, so to the extent that folks are willing to share these calls to action more broadly, we'll put in the follow-up email the language we used on social media, the language we used in our newsletter that you can utilize in your own communications. I know the Libraries Association also has been really active on social media. Like there is existing text that you can utilize and push out. And Andy had suggested to me too, like if there's a way to get the social media handles for legislators to be able to share with them. Tracy said a one-sheet email or contact sheet for students. Yeah, we can make sure that this is in a format that you can easily reshare and push out to your community. So thank you. That one of answers that who was talking to your, I mean, to the extent that anyone is willing to share this with their networks. I mean, that's what we're looking for here. Yeah. Thank you for flagging that. Helpful. And Tanetta, did you have a final closing comment for us?
Well, just real quick, of course, Philanthropy Delaware here. We are sharing any resources of this type with our members to subsequently share with their grantees, and we're putting information in our member newsletter as well. In terms of that level of support. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 response can't happen this year because government dollars aren't there to come alongside philanthropic dollars, and there aren't that many philanthropic dollars, more requests than dollars. But we're mindful of all that our nonprofit grantees across our state are going through, and whatever support we can lend. There has been no collective decision around beyond the DCF Meet the Moment grants, and I hope every one of you are applying for those between now and I think mid-May, May 30. And we'll put these resources that you all share on our grantee website as well, on the section of our website, so people can have access to all this information. And so that's one thing we're trying to do, is just get it far and wide through our members to subsequently share with their grantees. So that's why I ear hustle on housing's call, the arts calls. I'm on violence calls, just trying to keep up with what is going on to communicate it to the philanthropic membership. So I just wanted to at least communicate that.
Thank you.
We're with you, we're listening, and whatever the magic bullet's gonna be, hopefully sooner than later. And
Thank you.
applaud you all for standing your ground.
Thank you. And if folks do share the campaigns we have for federal funding and state funding, Jordan and our team this is sort of what the page looks like if you open it on your computer. Jordan has put on the page sort of the latest update. So like, this is what you need to know. This is background information on the left-hand side. Like, what's the situation that we're talking about? What are we doing about it? What is funding used for? Why does this matter now? And on the right-hand side is the draft email for your legislator. And so you can see I'm logged in here. My state rep is Stephanie Bolden. I can personalize this email by clicking on the little edit button and then submit it. It gets sent to her, and my other legislator is Senator Lockman. So you would get a senator and a rep, at least on the state side. On the federal side, it would all go to all three, but you have the chance to sort of edit this, personalize it, and submit it via email. And then any of this you can take and put on social if you feel so compelled as well. All right, I know we're at time here. Charlene, any closing comments from the Lieutenant Governor's office? Appreciate that she was able to join. I know she hopped since she had a 10:30, but anything you would say to close us out?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone for, again, making the time to be here and have these collaborative conversations and elevating things that we should be mindful of and initiatives and priorities. So I just want to thank you all on behalf of Lieutenant Governor Gay. I know we're close on time and I want to respect everyone's time. I'm going to drop 3 links into the chat just to make sure you guys have opportunities, if you don't already have, to make sure you're engaged with our office as well. One of which includes our newsletter sign up, so you can be kept abreast. And if there's any things we need to highlight, please elevate them to us. A contact us event sign up as well if you need to invite us to any event or would like to coordinate any meetings. That link is accessible there. If there's any constituent inquiries that you guys are mindful of, again, we know you're our partners, but you're also constituents as well. If there's anything you need to elevate, you can use that link as well. And then the last one I will drop in the chat is our events page. We are hosting meet and greets across the state. Our next one is in Rehoboth at Camp Rehoboth, and you can populate to see when our next series is as well. So I know we're short on time, but I just again want to thank you all for being here this morning and drop those resources to you in the chat.
Thanks, Charlene. Thank you for convening us. I hope to see you all soon, and we'll get a follow-up email out, if not today, by tomorrow for everybody. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody.